So this does actually feed right into what we're going to talk about. When we're talking about perception, we're talking about a country divided, right? We've been talking about how there's two Americas and anything like that, and it is like hard to imagine any dialogue taking place. And one of the reasons why I think that we have a hard time, we all want to be united, right? We are the United States, and we want to be viewed as we're all on the same team here, we're all Americans and so forth. But one of the hard things is that we have very different perceptions of the reality, right? Like, so our perception is our reality, and we have a really hard time understanding other people and separating that. So you remember last week, talked about identity. It's kind of the first part of the series here. And I talked about the communication model that John Powell came up with, Why Am I Afraid to Tell You Who I Am? And we talked about, again, we want to get to the place where we can express who we are without fear of judgment and be able to be honest with people and open and so forth. But of course, that's difficult, so a lot of times we rely on that. We'll start with level 5, cliche communication, and then we get to level 4, which was about the reporting the facts about others. And facts is a tricky word, because again, we always think we have the facts. And then level 3 talks about my ideas and judgments. So it kind of starts to sound like opinions, facts and opinions, and what is a fact, what is an opinion, and again, what is reality, what is real to us. Again, we see the world through a certain lens, that's our perception, and that's what we express to others. And when we hear something different, it's hard. In order to have that communication and dialogue with other people, we have to allow the fact that other people's perceptions are equally valid, and that is their reality, and because we share the same space, it's our shared reality, and so we do need to kind of like acknowledge that there are other storytellers involved and so forth. So I've got a little warm-up here. Then we're going to do a little activity. All right, so what do you see? Are these horizontal lines all parallel, or do they slope? How many people think they are parallel? How many people think they slope? How many people are having a hard time telling? Right? So they are parallel, but why do they look like they slope?
The boxes are shifted.
Right, boxes are shifted, and like there's still times I'm looking like, are you sure? Right? And of course, this is something that perception is related to perspective, right? And perspective is something that artists use all the time. We had a little discussion about art earlier, so we can tie that in definitely. And artists will play with that a little bit. So we went to an art museum. Nicholas is not allowed to give away any answers here. We went to an art museum this past summer. And ooh, that does not come out well. Not the colors that we expected. Can you tell what that is? It's
the Windows logo?
it looks like the Windows logo. That's what I thought it was, so I took a little picture of it. Look at that. But it's part of a bigger painting, and I got to be honest. I flipped it upside down. I changed the perspective a little bit. Here it is over here. That was what I took a picture of. Right? This is the rest of the picture. Like I said, the color reproduction is terrible on these projectors. But we see a woman here. Looks like maybe looking out a window, something like that. This is her head. And up above, what do we see up here? A phoenix, possibly?
Or the sun.
The sun, maybe? Good. Anyone see anything else?
Over here, it's got the bird, and the head of the bird is coming through.
Okay, maybe a bird. What about, what's this over here? And what's this over here? And then we got that yellow like circle in there. And what's this whole part projecting out? The beak. I guess it depends on what your perception is, right? Of what, if you see it as a bird, you're going to see, well, this is that part of the bird, right? Kind of looks to me like someone hanging on a cross. Here's the knee, here are the arms, here's the head. Okay. All right, so let's go forward. Here's the other side of the painting. Okay, this is a little clue here. So this was a painting by Salvador Dali, who likes to use he plays with perception a lot, plays with perspective. You see different things. When we were at the museum, they're like, now take a step back. Can you tell what that is now? Anyone know this painting? Haven't seen it before? What do you think, Nora? Abraham Lincoln. Good. So when we were up close, I couldn't see Abraham Lincoln at all. The title of the picture, I can't remember if it's called Abraham Lincoln or if it's called Gala Looking Out at the Mediterranean Ocean.
But it's Gala Looking Out at the Mediterranean Ocean, which at 30 feet becomes a portrait of Abraham Lincoln.
Very good. So when you're up close, you see one thing. They tell you, okay, now step back, right? And actually what they told you to do is take out your cell phone, because the cell phone is not like reproduced there. So you can see like this person had their cell phone, and now you can kind of see that perspective. Well, it's very different from this image to that image, right? And so you can maybe see Abraham Lincoln a little bit better
And
there.
you try to blur your vision as you're looking at it.
Yeah.
It's much easier to see.
So again, from further away, it's easier to see. Up close, you see the different things that are in there. It's just one of those kind of cool little things about perception that comes up. And actually, again, it's interesting that there's the picture within the picture, right? This is almost like Dali painting it, right? If this is his wife and that's him, kind of interesting. I don't know. All right, so I've got some other things. Anyone, what do you see in this one? Jeff.
Someone's face.
Someone's face, okay? And how many people see a face? We're really good at detecting faces. We can see a face in anything. Look in the clouds, look at a car. You know, a car looks like it's got a face with the, you know, a house sometimes looks like it's a face. We are hardwired to recognize faces. Okay? This is like, so psychologists like to play with this a lot. I first saw this, I thought, oh, look, it's the sea. It's the Mediterranean Sea. Here's Spain, and this is maybe Africa, and like that. But I also see the face. Actually, I saw the face first. You can kind of see it on that. All right, so this is the standard psychology ink blot. And again, what's the first thing you see? I see a face. First thing I see. Now, again, part of an ink blot suggests that there is no right or wrong answer. They just took ink, they folded it together and unfolded it, and so it's not really supposed to be anything in particular. And psychologists, I guess, used to like read into what people saw there, what was involved. This is another.
You see the vertebrae, somebody's vertebrae and their hips on the bottom. I mean,
Yeah.
you put them like
That's like a
that.
vertebrae.
Yeah, pelvis.
The
Yeah,
pelvis,
yeah, I
and,
can
you
see
know.
that. I can see that. All right, what do you see in this picture?
A vase.
Vases. And
A vase.
a vase. Who cannot see the vase? Do you see both the face, two faces and a vase? It just kind of depends. The first time I saw it, I wasn't sure that I could see it right away. All right, and what do you see here? Yeah. How many people see a young woman? How many people see an old woman? Okay, and how many people see both? Okay, how many people have seen this before? There you go, all right, so nothing new here, right? Again, just kind of talking about our perspective. All right, and then last one. How many bars do you see? Ooh. Some people say 3, some people say 4. Any other answers, possibly? What's that? Both?
Oh my God.
7? 8? Okay. Kind of depends. So I've seen this drawing with somebody standing over here saying it's 4, and someone standing over here saying, no, it's 3. Right? But if you follow it along, is it a bar? Like, oh, wait a minute, it's open. Well, what about this one? Oh yeah, that looks like it's a bar, I guess. Right? But that one doesn't work. What about this one?
So it's 2.
Whoa. I lost it. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Some people say, I don't see it.
I think it's 2.
It's one of those tricks, right? Our minds can play tricks on us. It's one of these lessons that we learn today. All right, one more exercise. This is why you have your pencils and papers. I'm going to give you a few minutes, and I want you to write a description of this. That's all I'm going to say. Write a description of that. I guess it's kind of the part of the point of the task. So just write what you see, what it is, whatever, however you interpret that. Write a description of connection with other people. Okay? So here's the thing about people, perceptions, right? You've seen these types of memes before. There's probably about 1,000 of them out on the internet. So here's a teacher. What my friends think I do, what my mom thinks I do. Like we got a, Albert Einstein picture here. What society thinks I do. Some silly guy playing the ukulele, probably singing Kumbaya. Then we got Snake. What kids think I do, in terms of expectations for a teacher. And what I think I do, well, I'm here to inspire people like Good Will Hunting, the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, it's great. So yeah, he kind of plays a mentor or whatever. And then this says what I actually do. So even my own perception is different from what I actually do. And there's a bunch of abbreviations here. Honestly, I don't even know what they all stand for. But again, what they actually do is kind of like deal with a lot of acronyms and policies and everything else. So that kind of gets tied up into it. And again, we might ignore that part of our life because we want to focus on this is why I do it. Right? So our perceptions of ourselves can be different, and other people's perceptions of us can be very different. Here's another one, since we're at BYG, what about Catholics? What my mother thinks I am, a little baby angel. What my friends think I am. That's an old black and white picture from First Communion would be my guess. What the media thinks I am, a bunch of protesters. What society thinks I am, people, I guess, praying the rosary there. What I think I am, family kind of praying together. What I really am, and right confession. See myself as a sinner, not sin. Quite a contrast between where we started and where we end up there. But we see some different pictures there. All right, so let's talk a little bit about stereotypes, because that was we were struggling for a question to talk about at the beginning, and there were a lot of responses. We realized afterwards the question we should have asked is, what's your least favorite stereotype? It probably would have been easy to come up with that, right? Rather than to talk about the one that you struggle with the most or anything along those lines. So, before we get there, let's just talk about the reasons why we perceive the same thing like this in very different ways. We kind of did that. Let's talk about why we stereotype. Okay? Because that's different from saying, we look at things in different ways. The stereotype is kind of an overgeneralization, right? So everyone kind of tends to make attributions, right? So that overhead projector, well, if you've seen one, you've seen them all, they all look the same. And again, you met one Catholic, you met them all, you know what all Catholics are like, right? That's what a stereotype is. Why do people do it? Yeah, I think probably the reason why it was hard to come up with answers to that question is because aren't we taught that stereotypes are bad and things to be avoided? So it's kind of hard to admit.
I think it can kind of be like an easier way. It takes less energy. Because like if you could just already assume stuff about people, you don't have to like feel obliged to actively find out things about them.
Yeah, it's the easy way, right? It's hard to think about what is unique about someone because first of all, it takes time, right? You have to actually ask them questions and things like that. Like, if we can just kind of say, "Oh, you're one of them. I know everything I need to know about you. I don't want to get to know anything more." That'd be something. Yeah.
What if maybe like I saw when I was answering the question a lot of like blogs from
Yeah.
like what if maybe you saw like a stereotype in a movie? So do you think that makes it okay?
Yeah. Movies use stereotypes a lot. Why would movies use stereotypes even more than people in the general population? Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to raise my hand.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, maybe to appeal to a certain demographic.
Okay. Awesome.
They want to explain things quickly.
Quickly, yeah. It's that
In a short
efficiency,
time.
right? So we see the character, they've kind of fit the type, the mold, right? We hear about action, well, I got typecast. It's a stereotype, right? Or type as being some, so we kind of have to make some assumptions about who this person is, what role they play, and so forth. And of course, sometimes in the story, they might play with the stereotype a little bit, and it turns out the person is not like that at all. Right? Jack, are you going to add anything too? That's anything too. All right, so in movies, they do it because you got to compress the story into a short amount of time, so we do it, right? And that's one of the reasons why people stereotype. It's quick. It's easy, right? So,
We're taught to summarize. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
get
just
to the
about,
point.
get to the point. It's just like, okay, can we get through this?
okay, good. Any other thoughts on why we stereotype?
Well, kind of in psychology, we learned that people form schemas, which basically is information on something, so you know it ahead of time. Like if you have experience like being burnt before, you may know, hey, looking at that water is boiling, there's steam coming out, I know that's probably hot because I've had experience with that. So I guess kind of stereotypes is a more society formed thing. So like even a person doesn't have to have experience with that to maybe understand what it's going to be like. You can appease to a broader audience and have people like understand what you mean, even if they're not necessarily always true.
Good, and coming back to the point about the movies, right? Those create a lot of schema for us because we don't have, our experiences are limited and we see these adventures and these great stories in the movies or whatever, and all of a sudden those stereotypes that they use become our stereotypes, right? They become our schemas about what we expect to happen. What were you gonna?
I was just gonna say, like, the human brain likes to recognize patterns.
Yes.
And just things that make sense to us.
Yeah.
It's part of it, we're afraid of what we don't understand or know.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of try to group or categorize things so we can kind of understand it and be able to navigate.
Yeah. So, our brains are kind of wired to stereotype, right? They are things that have to be overcome because it's kind of the natural process that our brain uses to make sense of the world, right? The way perception works. We are exposed to a stimulus, or lots of different stimuli, one of our psychology stuff, right? And we can't pay attention to everything. There's so much going on around us that our brain kind of focuses in on certain details, certain aspects, right? So there's certain things that we pay attention to when we're perceiving something. And again,
I have to say, when I was in high school, I was dating this young man, and his mother assumed because I had long hair, didn't wear makeup, I was a hippie, therefore I did drugs. That was the deal. I was like, what? Goody two shoes? I mean, come on, are you kidding me? I was floored. But that was her perception because of the little cues she got that, I didn't wear makeup, I had long hair,
yeah.
Here you have it.
So again, like, even going back to last week about our identity, right? The ways that we present ourselves, it kind of brings certain baggage, and that's why sometimes we have to pay attention to impression management, the impression we make on others, because people cling to their first impressions and make a jump to conclusions that may not be correct, right? So we pay attention to certain things, we ignore other things, and then our brain connects with the schemas, like Katie was saying. The organization step of perception is like, okay, this looks like something I've seen before. It looks like an apple core. It looks like a nuclear reactor. It looks like, an accordion. I see, accordion bellows, whatever. So our brain is wired to make connections to other things. We're trying to figure out, what is this? What do I do with it? Can I, do I need to pay attention to it? Do I not? That might be. And then after we've kind of made those connections, we come to some conclusions about it, right? Come to a conclusion, might be a wrong conclusion, but the perception was reality, right? In terms of then you got treated that way. So there's that interpretation. And of course, I would imagine when you realize that that was our perception, you'd start to engage in negotiations. Say, no, I'm not like that at all, right? This is the reason why I dress like this. This is the reason why I wear my hair like this. It's part of this, not that, right? Some of the things that came up on the list, and in light of our discussion, right, we make assumptions, we stereotype liberals versus conservatives, Democrats versus Republicans, and it's way too simple, right? It's easy, right? Oh, I know everything I need to know about you. If you have this view about this issue, then all those other issues might go along with it, right? If we want to engage people in those difficult conversations, we have to give people a chance to talk about, well, how do you view it? Because not everybody who belongs to a certain party thinks about it in the same way. I thought you guys did a really good job of handling that discussion. And that's what allowed you to do it in a respectful way, is because you were paying attention to those small individual differences, right? So, again, our perceptions are reality. So the question is, how do we know and recognize the truth? And I put that in all caps. How do we know what is true? If we can't trust our perception as always being that if other people have different perceptions, am I wrong? Well, in this case, we can count. As I look at it, I'm willing to concede there are 3 pegs here, not 4, right? So I think after further consideration, we can change our views, right? So that's one way that we can recognize the truth. We hear what other people say, and then we can look at it again and make a different opinion. But sometimes the things that we have difficulty with are the things that it's not really clear cut who's right and who's wrong. So in this situation, how do we know and recognize the truth? Reactions, responses on that?
I did some study in a theory of knowledge class, and we read a seminar on not one thing that you can pinpoint as truth. Truth is kind of it's a abstract concept that like, it tricks you into thinking that one thing is right. And there's really just a complex middle ground there that is where the truth is found. Which really, a simple answer to that question is, it depends.
Yeah, I get that answer a lot. It depends, right? And it's because it is the right answer, because it does depend, right? It depends on your experiences versus your experiences versus my experiences. You have a little piece of the truth, and you have a little piece of the truth, and I have a little piece of the truth. And that's why we need to come together and share those different ideas and those different perspectives. You know, it's really easy to kind of just hang out with people who see the world you do. So I was in a classroom last weekend, and I saw a quote from Albert Einstein that I really liked. I didn't type it up or anything like that, but it says, when everybody thinks the same, no one thinks very much. I think that's basically what it said. Right? If everyone's thinking the same, then no one's really thinking at all. Because, again, we need to recognize that surely there's something different. And a lot of times we're hesitant to bring up those differences because we like to feel connected with other people. And one of the ways that we do that is kind of by agreeing with other people. But like Jason said, our perception of the truth should not be in all caps. It should be lowercase t, truth, right? And again, since we're at BYG, when we talk about capital T truth, is kind of like, we believe, well, God is the source of all truth. We hear that in the scriptures a lot. But we're not God. And so one of my favorite prayers, Thomas Merton said, Lord, I have no idea what you want from me, but I'm doing my best here, and please show me the way, and if I'm not on the right path, help me find it. And that was one of the basic foundations of Merton's prayers, and I like that a lot, because again, it opens up the possibility of dialogue. When we have really strong, especially religious beliefs, saying, well, this is the way it is, right? We're pretending like we know the capital T truth. We'd like to think that we do, again, that because we have a relationship with God, we talk to God about it. But it's still, if we don't respect that mystery, then we run the risk of kind of missing out on a bigger perception. So again, even though we're all Catholic, we might have different ideas about what it means to be Catholic, or how to engage being Catholic. We saw that one slide where there's different people there. So I think that's an important thing to recognize. I'm going to go through this real quick. Some of the influences on perception. Again, access to information, our physiology. Access to information would be like what we know, right? Like, so the books that you've read, the classes that you've taken. I've heard different people talk about different classes. Like, if no one's taking a psychology class, they might know what the heck's a schema, right? They don't have access to that information. Our physiology matters. That's our body, the way our bodies work. So again, we're talking about if you don't have your glasses, your eyes, you can't really see it very well, right? If sometimes as we get older, our sense of hearing can go. And so again, we think we heard something, but we actually heard something different. And there are psychological influences as well, just the way we're feeling today, what's our mood. There's social influences, our role. So a lot of you talked about the stereotypes, the gender roles too, right? So gender is a social construct, right? Sex is a biological construct, physiology, right? Male and female. Gender, men and women, social. Okay, we're socialized into thinking that women can't be tough was one of the ones that I saw on there. Or that, I don't know if this one made the list, but we were talking about earlier, like men can't cry, men can't show emotion, whatever. Those are kind of the things that influence the ways that we perceive the world. And so that's important things to kind of reflect on and think about. And of course our cultural influence. Again, as Americans we share a certain culture. As Catholics we share a certain culture. But again, it's not always exactly the same. Our ideas of what it means to be American, our ideas of what it means to be Catholic, might be a little different in terms of like, even in our family, I was brought up as a German Catholic. That had some sense of identity for me growing up. My wife came up, my family was more Polish Catholic. And And so like when we got to the holidays, we found that we had different ways of celebrating it. Do you want to share what's unique about Polish Catholics, Nicholas?
I don't even know what to call it. Do the thing, the wafer. Like, we have like a big wafer thing, like what we use for communion at some churches, and not quite the same. And we all get a piece, and then we go around in age order, I think, but then it's like my family, and we like break off a piece of the other person's wafer, and then you exchange some sort of like Christmas blessing, I guess.
Blessing, good wish, something like that. So when I was introduced to this, I was like, what is this all about? Like, I didn't grow up with that, right? It's called Velia, and they do it on Christmas Eve, and it's not communion, but it is a blessed wafer. And so again, it's just kind of something, and it turns out to be a really nice tradition. It's one that I was happy to adopt in my family, and actually now I've extended it to my family, like my parents, my siblings, or whatever. When we get together on Christmas Eve, we all participate in that ritual. And it's kind of a nice little touch. So again, we have those different things going on. All right. So I want to share a little bit on Scripture. And I was thinking of the reading from John, where he's talking about the washing of the disciples' feet. And in the interest of time, I don't want to take too much on this. If you remember, this is when, before the Feast of the Passover, Jesus knew that the hour had come, and he already knew that Judas was going to betray him and so forth. So during supper, fully aware that the Father had put everything into his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God, he rose from supper and took off his outer garments. He took a towel and tied it around his waist, and he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and dry them with the towel around his waist. He came to Simon Peter and said to him, so he came to Simon Peter, and Simon Peter said to him, Master, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus answered and said to him, what I am doing you do not understand now, but you will understand later. And Peter said to him, you will never wash my feet. And Jesus answered him, unless I wash you, you will have no inheritance with me. And Simon Peter said to him, Master, then not only my feet, but my hands and head as well. And Jesus said to him, whoever has bathed has no need to except to have his feet washed, for he is clean all over. So you are clean, but not all. For he knew who would betray him, and for this reason he said, not all of you are clean. Okay. So let's stop for a second and think about what perceptions did Simon Peter and perhaps the other apostles, what were they thinking about? You know, if you were in that place, Simon Peter, like, what are you doing? You're going to wash my feet? What do you think that's about? What perception did the apostles have of Jesus at that point in time? And Jesus said, look, I get it. You don't understand it right now. But what was their perception? Why were they resistant? How many people have ever participated in the Holy Thursday service where they do washing of feet? Not very many. So we repeat this. It's part of the Holy Triduum, right before the Easter Vigil. This is a high, we're leading up to the high point of the church year. And we repeat what Jesus did here, because now we think we understand it better than perhaps the apostles did. But I'll be honest, the first time I went to the Holy Thursday service, it's like, we're really going to do this? Like, we're actually going to take off our shoes and, like, we're going to, like, wash each other's feet? I kind of felt like Simon Peter, like, whoa, what's going on here? So, anyone else who's been here, did you have a similar reaction, or?
If I'm not mistaken, last year at Bellingham, we all did hands. Like, we washed the hands of the person by you. So that way, the whole church community could participate without, like, taking the time.
So where's our humility?
There's definitely
More people will participate, but there is a real humility to taking off your shoes and having your feet washed. And sometimes I think we ought to think about that.
Yeah.
But who was Jesus to the apostles and the apostles to Jesus? What were their roles? Who was Jesus to the apostles? What was his role?
I mean, they called him master, so
Master?
it seemed like he was some like he was like a high figure to them, and well, he was. So they thought it was probably above Jesus to wash their feet.
That's right. So they called him master. He took the towel and tied it around his waist. All right, come on, where's my Harry Potter fans? What's the towel signify? On Dobby wear what? Doesn't Dobby wear a tie? He's a servant. Right? So he's a servant. So Jesus is basically saying, I am now the servant. You call me master, but I am going to serve you.
You call me teacher, you call me Messiah, you call me master, and now I'm going to put on the robe of the servant.
Right. And do what the servant normally does, right? The servant would have been the one who was washing your feet.
I could see the apostle maybe perceiving that it was like some sort of trick or something.
Yeah.
Like, does he actually think we should do? No.
Well, Jesus is always doing this too, right? Like, there's got to be some lesson in this. Let's just get to the point here. So, okay, good. Let's see. So why was Jesus doing it? Why did he say, I know you figure me master, but why did he decide I'm going to play the role of the servant in this case? What is he trying to teach them? Sue said a little bit about humility. That's certainly an important lesson. Is there anything else?
I was just thinking, like, as you were saying, like, in the context, like, it was nearing the day when he would die, and
Yeah.
I think he kind of maybe realized that he didn't have a lot much time left to teach them, long lessons and stuff. He could kind of have this action performed, and then that was something that they could think about, and that they could work with themselves, without them just having to say exactly what necessary.
So what was Jesus trying to teach them about leadership? What is a part of it? How is it?
We actually talk about this at school, like the servant leader, and we talk about it in sports, like if you're a senior, instead of just like having all the freshmen do stuff, like maybe, step down and you take the laundry one day or something. So that sort of servant leader.
When any of you that came to the summer service trip came to AMP for the first time, and the seniors and the post-seniors all paid attention to you and included you in the group and brought you along, how did you feel as an 8th grader or as a freshman? How did it connect you with the group? That's servant leadership. Something to think about.
All right, so I'm going to skip ahead in the story a little bit. So as the next part of the story talks about, well, wait a minute, you call me master, and, talk about being a servant, and no slave is greater than his master, and so forth. And then it gets to the point where he, again, announces that Judas is going to betray him, so Judas takes off. And then, after Judas had left, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and he will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. You will look for me, and as I told the Jews, where I go you cannot come. So now I say it to you. I give you a new commandment. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how all will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. So we all know this, the golden rule, right? And it kind of helps us get to the place where we want to go with this in terms of having genuine connection with others, authentic communication. We need to be able to understand other people's perceptions. And when we understand the perceptions, maybe we can also understand the feelings too. Right? So not just what they think, but what they feel and why they feel like it's so important, especially when it's different from our own views. That's when empathy is really hard, being able to identify, like, why is this so important to you? So again, we really want to engage with empathy. And you've heard, the word empathy, I hope, somewhere before, walk a mile in someone else's shoes and so forth. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But I want to close this one with a short video. And maybe that. Empathy hard, right? Because all of us want to receive empathy. Because we all have our own battles, right? We all have our own things that we have to deal with. And so I was reminded of, I'm sure this is in the Bible somewhere, my yoke is easy, my burden light, right? I remember it from the song lyric. Come to Me is the song. If you go to 7 o'clock, you would recognize it. I don't know if we'll have time to listen to it tonight or not. But what it reminds me is that we don't necessarily have to take on everyone else's problems. We don't have to fix their problems. But to be aware of them, again, might change the way we relate to them. And again, if we can share our journey, right, and not compete. You know, you think you have problems, let me tell you, right? I've got this other thing. Just say, man, that's really hard, you know? And if it doesn't feel like it's diminishing, maybe, you know, they would be interested in if they ask you how you're doing, you can share your story, and they can show concern for you. It might not be as big of a deal as that, but again, it's all perception, right? To you, it is a big deal. That's what you're fighting with. That's your struggle, right? It's not a competition to see who has the biggest problems, right? We all have problems. And in our world, in our reality, they're problems, right? And they're things that we struggle with. And again, some of the ones in these examples here are pretty major. And they are very real for a lot of people. We'd like to pretend that they're not there, but they are. So again, I think it's just a reminder to be kind, because we don't know what people are dealing with. So the default should be kind and to try to share the journey.
Steve, do we have just maybe 3 minutes to
Absolutely.
talk to maybe the person next to us and say, when is the time that you actually changed your mind and your perception? What was the situation, and what helped you change that? What helped you find maybe a broader truth that you now maybe have? Do we have time for that?
Yeah, please.
Maggie, maybe you can buddy up with Matthew, and Jack, if you could buddy up with Will, and then everybody else just kind of turn to the person next to them and share a story. When was a time that you actually, you know, you thought one way and then something happened, or you got more information, or a new friend came in your life or
And
something?
part of perspective taking is to try to understand the other person first, right? Because, again, we all want to be understood, but who's going to be the person who's going to try to seek first to understand? And I think that's what Jesus is trying to tell us, you know, try to serve others first. And again, hopefully if we can share with others, we'll lighten our burden, to know that we are sharing along that. But also, if you're not feeling understood, remember that God is with you, even when you feel alone. So after doing kind of like the heavy video, I had another short one that was just a lyric video that could be used for prayer if you want, or if you want to go into your regular prayer, you can do that. Like I said, it's basically the song Come to Me, and so it has that lyric too,
Okay.
and other things.
Save me 3 minutes at the end, and we're good. Is that possible?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.